The arrival of the dragon. The galaxy had always feared the alien dragon. He was a creature so huge that when his wings opened, they could block the light of a star. His roar could travel across space, echoing in the ears of thousands of worlds. For centuries, no army, no weapon, no fleet had been able to stop him. When he came, entire civilizations burned. When he opened his jaws, even the bravest captains abandoned hope. But on one quiet night, far from the center of the galaxy, he came again. This time, the target was a broken human colony world. The planet had already suffered from war. Its cities lay in ruins, its towers fallen, its people hiding in caves and basements. The sky above was filled with smoke and ashes. The survivors whispered prayers, begging the dragon to pass them by. But he never passed. When the alien dragon chose a planet, it was marked for fire. The ground shook as his massive body landed. His claws tore into the earth like mountains falling. His wings folded in, covering half the horizon. The air grew heavy, hot, and full of the smell of burning metal. The people hiding underground could hear his breath, slow and deep, like storms crashing against cliffs. They held their children close, waiting for the end. Mothers wept quietly. Fathers clenched their fists, but none dared move. The galaxy had taught them one truth. Resistance meant nothing before the dragon. He stood in silence, his eyes glowing. Like two burning suns, he looked over the ruins of the colony, searching, waiting. Many believed he was choosing where to unleash his first flame. But then, something unexpected happened. From the ruins of a broken street, a small figure appeared. It was a human child, a little girl, no older than 7 years. Her hair was dusty, her dress torn, but her steps were steady. She did not run, she did not hide. She walked straight toward the beast. The people who watched from cracks in the rubble froze. They thought the child was lost, that she had gone mad from hunger and fear. Some covered their eyes, unable to watch what would happen next. The dragon lowered his head, bringing his burning eyes closer to the ground. His shadow covered the girl completely. His breath washed over her like a storm, hot enough to melt steel. Still, she did not stop. Step by step, she moved closer, until she stood just a few meters away from his massive snout. The dragon's claw, larger than any human building, shifted slowly. It was as if he wanted to crush her with the smallest movement. The people whispered prayers, begging her to turn back. But the girl raised her head and looked straight into his eyes. Her lips trembled, but not from fear. Instead, she whispered a single word, her voice soft, yet clear enough to echo in the silence. Dad. The sound of that word seemed to freeze the galaxy itself. The dragon did not move. His glowing eyes widened. His claws stopped trembling. His chest rose sharply as if the word had struck him. For the first time in history, the destroyer of worlds hesitated. He leaned closer, so close that the girl's hair blew back in his breath. His mouth opened slightly, but no fire came. Instead, there was a low sound, almost like a growl, but softer, broken, uncertain. It was the sound of confusion, the sound of memory. The people could not believe what they saw. This was the beast that had burned fleets into ashes. This was the monster that had ended empires, and yet he stood frozen before a fragile child. A child who dared to call him by a name that no one had ever spoken. The girl reached out her tiny hand. Her fingers shook, but she stretched them toward the scales of his snout. The dragon lowered his head even more, his glowing eyes never leaving hers. The survivors hiding in the ruins held their breath, waiting for the strike, but the strike never came. The child's hand touched the dragon's skin, rough and hot like burning stone, and the dragon did not kill her. Instead, he closed his eyes slowly, like a wounded creature finding rest after centuries of war. Whispers spread among the people. No one understood. No one dared speak too loudly. Why did the child call him that word? Why did the dragon listen? The galaxy had always seen the alien dragon as death itself. But here, on this broken world, something new was happening. Something no one had ever imagined. The girl stood tall, her tiny hand resting on the monster's face. Her eyes shone with tears, but not from fear. It was a strange kind of hope, the kind that made the heart beat faster. She looked at him again and repeated, even softer than before, "Dad." And in that moment, the alien dragon, the terror of stars, the destroyer of worlds, bowed his massive head. The ground trembled, the sky shook, but not from destruction. For the first time, the galaxy trembled because the impossible had happened. The alien dragon had been stopped, not by armies, not by weapons, but by the voice of a small human girl. Asterisk whispers of the past. The galaxy was never silent. News traveled faster than light, and within hours, whispers spread from one star system to the next. The alien dragon had landed on a human colony. He had not burned it. He had not destroyed it. Instead, a small human girl had walked up to him and called him Dad, and the dragon, the terror of stars, had bowed his head. Across alien councils, confusion turned into panic. Leaders argued. Generals shouted. Scholars searched old records. How could this happen? The dragon, who had never shown weakness, who had never spared a soul, had been stopped by a fragile child. It was impossible. It was madness, and yet it was real. On the ruined planet, survivors crept out of hiding. They moved carefully, afraid that one wrong sound might wake the beast's rage again. But the dragon did not roar. He remained still, his massive body curled around the little girl like a living wall of fire and scales. The people stared in disbelief, some dropping to their knees in fear, others whispering prayers of thanks. No one dared approach the child. No one dared ask who she was, but their eyes carried the same question. Why did she call him that? The girl's name was Alara. She was small, thin from hunger, but her eyes carried a strange strength. She did not seem surprised that the dragon listened. She did not run from him. Instead, she sat by his side, her tiny hand resting against the rough scales of his claw, like a daughter sitting beside a father who had returned from war. Some of the braver survivors gathered in the shadows and whispered among themselves. Maybe she has lost her mind, one said. No, you didn't see his eyes. Another replied. He looked at her like he knew her. What if she is his child? A voice whispered, trembling, half human, half dragon. The idea spread like fire, fear mixed with wonder. But the truth was stranger than rumor. Far away, in the hidden archives of the Galactic Council, an old record was pulled from dust. Centuries ago, before the dragon had become a monster of fear, there had been a battle. A human ship, small and broken, had stood against him. Its captain, a human soldier, had not begged for his life. Instead, he had fought until his ship burned. At the very end, as the flames consumed him, he had faced the dragon and shouted words that no one could forget. If you ever understand honor, protect what is mine. The dragon had spared no one before, but that day he had turned and left. No one knew why. The story became a myth, a tale told by old soldiers. Some said the dragon had respected the man's courage. Others said he had been confused by the human's defiance. But now, looking at the child beside the beast, the forgotten tale returned. Could she be the child of that soldier? Was this the promise the dragon had carried for centuries on the ruined planet? Alara finally spoke again. Her voice was quiet, but in the silence, every survivor heard her. You came back, she whispered to the dragon. I knew you would. The dragon's chest rumbled, not in anger, but in something heavier, deeper. A sound like sorrow trapped for too long. His massive eyes blinked slowly, as if memories long buried were waking. The survivors trembled, torn between terror and awe. What was this bond? If she truly was connected to him, then the galaxy itself was in danger. For now the dragon had a reason to fight harder than ever. Not for destruction, but for her, among the stars. Fleets prepared, alien empires gathered. Some wanted to capture the girl, believing she was the key to controlling the dragon. Others wanted her dead, thinking her existence would only bring more destruction. And yet, some whispered another possibility. If the dragon could feel love, if he could remember a promise, maybe there was hope. Maybe the girl was not a curse, but the only chance for peace. But peace was never easy, and as Alara leaned against the great scales of the dragon, closing her tired eyes as if she was finally safe, dark shadows already moved among the stars. Warships gathered, hunters prepared, spies sent messages. Everyone wanted the girl. Everyone wanted to test if the impossible bond was real. The dragon lowered his head beside her. He did not speak, for his voice was the fire itself. But his silence was louder than any roar. He had chosen. The girl was his to protect. The galaxy could tremble all it wanted. He would not let her go. And so the whispers spread further, growing louder, darker, more dangerous. The galaxy no longer feared only the dragon. Now it feared the little human girl who dared to call him dad, and soon, the entire universe would fight to claim or destroy her. The galaxy reacts. The galaxy was never kind when it smelled weakness. Every race, every empire, every hidden council, they all wanted one thing: survival. And when the story of the alien dragon and the small human girl spread like fire, galaxy reacted like a beast that had tasted blood. In the silver halls of the Zorath Alliance, alien lords shouted at each other, "The dragon has a weakness now." One hissed, "A child. If we capture her, the dragon will kneel before us," another cried, slamming his clawed hand on the table. But others shook their heads, fear heavy in their voices. "No, do you not understand? This bond makes him stronger, not weaker. If he fights for her, if he protects her, nothing will stop him." On the far side of the galaxy, the Yalari swarm prepared their fleets. Thousands of insectoid ships crawled from hidden hives, their leaders clicking in excitement. "To break the dragon, we must break the girl," they whispered. "And when he screams, we will strike for them." Her existence was not hope, but bait, a trap to drag the dragon into war. Even among humans, fear spread. The colonies whispered. The soldiers debated. The leaders argued. Some saw the girl as a savior, proof that even the deadliest monster could feel love. They called her the key, the only hope of taming the dragon. But others spat her name like poison. "She is a danger." They warned, "Wherever she goes, the dragon will follow, and behind him comes fire. Better to end her life now, before the galaxy burns with her." Whispers grew into fear. Fear grew into anger. And anger always called armies, in secret. Rooms, maps of war were drawn. Some empires prepared to seize the girl alive. Others prepared to erase her from existence. But all agreed on one truth: the galaxy would never be the same. Back on the ruined colony world, Alara slept against the scales of the dragon. Her tiny body curled, her hand resting against the warmth of his chest. The survivors kept their distance, but their eyes never left her. To them she was no longer just a child. She was a mystery, a question, and perhaps a weapon. The dragon himself remained silent. His golden eyes burned in the dark, but they did not burn with rage. Instead, they glowed with something older, something hidden, a promise, a memory, a burden he had carried for too long. And though no one heard his thoughts, they could feel it. The dragon had chosen the girl, and nothing in the galaxy could take her away without blood. In the great halls of the Galactic Council, chaos reigned. Screens showed images of the girl touching the dragon's face. Alien senators shouted, pounding their fists. "Is this proof of weakness or proof of danger?" one demanded. "Should we protect her or destroy her?" another asked. But above the noise, one voice spoke, cold and sharp. "She is not a child." The counselor said, "She is a weapon. And whoever controls her controls the dragon." The chamber fell silent, because deep down, they all knew it was true far away. Hidden fleets began to move. Some carried cages, strong enough to hold a small human girl. Others carried bombs, ready to erase her before she grew too powerful. And among them, spies whispered to their masters. "She trusts him," they said. She calls him Dad, and he listens. The words spread, chilling hearts across systems, because what was more dangerous than a monster of fire? A monster of fire who had something to love. Meanwhile, Ilara woke, her eyes blinking against the broken light of dawn. She looked up at the dragon and smiled, small and tired but full of trust. "You found me," she whispered. "You kept your promise." The dragon lowered his head, his breath rumbling softly, to the survivors. It sounded like thunder, but to her, it sounded like comfort. She did not know the galaxy was watching, waiting, fearing. To her, there was only one truth. She was not alone anymore. But above the ruined skies, hidden ships watched. Cloaked in silence, they scanned the child, the beast, the survivors. And messages raced back to their masters. "The girl is real," they confirmed. "The bond is real," and with that, war became certain. The galaxy reacted not with peace, not with patience, but with the sharp edge of fear. And fear always built weapons, as Ilara laughed softly, resting against the dragon's chest. Fleets prepared, armies gathered, plans unfolded. The universe had decided her fate. She would either be the key to peace or the spark of endless war. And in the shadows of stars, hunters whispered the same vow. "Find the girl, take the girl, or kill the girl." The dragon's golden eyes lifted to the sky. He knew the galaxy was moving, and for the first time in centuries, he was not fighting for fire, not fighting for destruction. He was fighting for her. And the galaxy trembled, not because he had roared, but because he had chosen. Asterisk, the test of fire. The stars had never been so dangerous. Illyra's soft whisper had shaken the galaxy, but whispers alone could not hold back armies. Ships were already on the move, fleets sharpening their claws in silence. And the dragon, though feared by all, was now hunted not for his fire, but for the child in his care. On the broken human colony, days passed like heavy shadows. Survivors watched from afar as the dragon stayed near the girl. He did not leave. He did not destroy. He simply waited, his wings folded like mountains, his golden eyes fixed on the horizon. Ilara played near him, her small hands touching broken pieces of stone, her laughter soft and strange among ruins. For the first time, the people dared to hope. But hope never lasts long when the galaxy smells weakness. The trap was set in silence. A fleet of warships drifted near the ruined world, their hulls dark to hide against the stars. Inside, soldiers whispered to each other, their orders clear. "Do not kill the dragon," their commander said. "Use the girl. He will not fight if she is in danger." Their plan was simple and cruel. Strike the humans, force the girl to cry, and watch the dragon bow. Night fell on the colony, the air still heavy with smoke. Ilara lay curled against the dragon's chest, his breath rising and falling like a great storm in sleep. The survivors huddled in silence, too afraid to even light fires. And then the sky tore open. The first warship descended, its engines burning like red scars. Beams of light cut across the ruins, searching, hunting. The people screamed as cages of energy dropped around them. Trapping dozens at once, soldiers poured out, their weapons humming, their voices cold. The dragon awoke with a roar that shook the heavens. His eyes blazed gold, his wings spread wide, and the ground split beneath his claws. The soldiers faltered, fear crawling into their hearts. But their commander shouted, "Hold the child hostage." He barked, "He will not burn us." Blaster fire cracked across the ruins. But the dragon did not release his flame. He shielded Ilara with his wings, folding them around her like a fortress. The soldiers advanced, their weapons glowing. Ilara pressed her tiny hands against the dragon's scales, her voice trembling. "Don't fight, Dad. Please don't." The words cut into him deeper than any blade. The dragon wanted to unleash his fire, to turn the soldiers into ash. But her voice stopped him. For the first time, the galaxy saw the impossible. The alien dragon holding back, not from weakness, but from love. The commander smirked, believing his plan had worked. "See," he shouted, "the beast will not fight if the girl is in danger." He raised his weapon. aiming at the survivors trapped in the cages. "Cry for me, child," he whispered cruelly. "Make him kneel." But something else happened instead. Alara stood, her small body trembling but her eyes fierce. She placed her hand on the dragon's snout and whispered, "You don't have to hurt them. You don't need to. You promised to protect me, and I believe you." The dragon froze, torn between fire and silence, and then, with a roar that shattered the night, he chose neither. He swept his massive wings down, creating a storm of wind so strong it hurled soldiers through the air. The cages shattered, the survivors freed, but not a single flame left his mouth. The galaxy had always known the dragon as destruction. But now he fought with strength, without fire. The fleet above panicked. "Why is he holding back?" The commander shouted, "This is not the dragon we know." But deep inside, fear spread faster than orders, because a monster who could destroy without killing was far more terrifying than one who only burned. The soldiers regrouped, their weapons glowing brighter, but the dragon's tail swept across the ruins, smashing them into the ground. His wings shielded the girl, every movement protecting her. Alara cried out, but not in fear, in defiance. "Leave us alone," she shouted, her tiny voice carrying across the battlefield. For a moment, even the soldiers hesitated, staring at her as if she was something more than human. At last, the fleet commander gave the final order. "Retreat," he growled. "This is not the time." The ships pulled back, their engines burning, their soldiers scrambling. The dragon stood tall among the ruins, his chest heaving, his eyes glowing, but still, no fire left his mouth. He had protected them, not with destruction, but with control. The survivors watched in stunned silence. They had seen the dragon fight before, but never like this, not as a destroyer, but as a guardian. And as Alara hugged his massive claw, the galaxy realized a new truth. The dragon had changed, and with him, the balance of power across the stars was about to break. Far away, in hidden rooms, alien leaders stared at the reports. "He shielded her," they whispered. "He fought without fire." "What does this mean?" another asked, trembling. "It means," one voice answered coldly, "he is no longer a monster. He is something worse, a father." And the galaxy trembled once more. Not because the dragon had destroyed, but because he had chosen to protect. The bond revealed. The night after the battle was quiet. The survivors hid in their broken shelters, whispering about what they had seen. The dragon had fought without fire, protecting instead of destroying. And at the heart of it all was the small human girl who called him Dad. Alara sat close to the dragon, her tiny figure curled beside his massive claw. She traced her fingers across the rough scales, her voice soft. "You kept your promise," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if he truly understood. The dragon's golden eyes blinked slowly, heavy with memories, and for the first time in centuries, he allowed those memories to rise long ago, before he was feared as the terror of stars. The dragon had been a beast without purpose. He lived only to burn, to test his power, to crush whatever dared resist. Worlds fell, armies turned to ash. Nothing had meaning until one battle changed everything. It was a forgotten corner of the galaxy. A small human warship had stood in his path, weak, fragile, already damaged. The dragon expected it to flee, to beg for mercy, but it did not. Instead, its captain, a human soldier with fire in his eyes, fought to the very last breath. The dragon destroyed the ship piece by piece, but still the human resisted. And when the flames surrounded him, he did not bow. He stood tall, even as death closed in. Dragon remembered his voice clearly, sharp and full of defiance. "You can burn me," the man shouted, "but you will never break me." And then softer, his eyes filled with something stronger than fear. "If you have any honor, protect my child. She is all I have left." For the first time, the dragon had hesitated. Something in those words, something in the man's courage, struck deeper than any weapon. The ship burned, the human fell, and yet his last vow lingered. The dragon left that battlefield without finishing his fire. And ever since, the memory haunted him. Across centuries he searched, he burned less, roared less, but always listened for that voice again. He had seen countless humans, countless children, but none carried the same spark, until now, until Alara. When she whispered "Dad," the memory returned, the face of the dying soldier, the sound of his vow, and the promise he had carried in silence. The survivors could not see these memories, but they felt something change in the air. The dragon's golden eyes softened when he looked at the girl. He lowered his head close to her, not as a predator, but as something older, something bound. Alara touched his snout again and smiled. "You knew my father," she whispered without fear. "Didn't you?" The dragon rumbled, a sound that shook the ground but carried no anger. To the survivors, it was just noise, but to her, it felt like an answer, yes, and in that moment, she understood. The beast had not come to destroy her world, he had come for her, to fulfill a promise made long ago. But peace never lasts. Across the galaxy, spies delivered the same message to their masters. The dragon protects the girl because of an oath. They reported, he is bound to her as if her life is his own. Alien rulers leaned forward in their thrones, their voices sharp with greed. Then the child is not just a weakness, she is his leash. If we hold her, we hold him. And in dark corners, others whispered of killing her. End the girl, and the dragon's promise dies with her. On the ruined colony, Alara did not know of these schemes. She only knew that for the first time since her parents had been lost, she felt safe. She leaned against the dragon's warm scales, her small body finally able to rest. Her voice was barely a breath. "You're not a monster," she said softly. "You're my family." The dragon closed his eyes, and for a moment, the galaxy's most feared creature looked almost peaceful, but deep in his chest, a fire still burned. Not the fire of destruction, but the fire of protection. He had failed once to save a human. He would not fail again. The bond was revealed, and with it came a storm, because the galaxy had learned the truth. The dragon had a reason to fight stronger than fire. He had something to lose, and every empire knew they must act before that bond grew too strong. Above the stars, fleets gathered once more, and in the shadows of war, the hunters whispered, "The dragon is no longer just an enemy." They said he is a father, and that made him more dangerous than ever. The final confrontation. The galaxy no longer waited in silence. The whispers had grown into shouts. The shouts had turned into orders, and now fleets gathered like storms across the stars. Every empire, every council, every warlord saw the same truth. The dragon had chosen the girl, and if he was bound to her, then she was the galaxy's most dangerous secret. The sky above the ruined human colony darkened as ships appeared, one by one. Their shadows blotted out the stars. Hundreds of warships from different races, enemies turned allies for this one moment. Their weapons glowed, their engines thundered, their voices crackled over the comms. "Hand over the girl," they demanded, "or burn with her." The survivors on the ground trembled. They had no weapons, no ships, no armies. They had only the dragon, and he stood tall, his wings unfolding like walls of night, his golden eyes blazing against the fleets above. Alara clung to his shoulder, her tiny hand pressed against his warm scales. She looked at the sky filled with war and whispered, "They're here for me, aren't they?" The dragon rumbled, a low, heavy sound that made the earth shake. It was not an answer of words, but of truth. Yes, they had come for her, and they would not leave without her blood or her chains. The first warning shot lit up the sky. A beam of energy slammed into the ruins, tearing stone and fire into the air. The survivors screamed, huddling into the shadows. But the dragon did not move. He lifted his head higher, his wings spread wider, and his roar shook the heavens. The fleets paused, engines flickering, as fear rippled through their ranks. For centuries they had feared his fire, but now they feared something greater. His silence. The commander of the allied fleets spoke, his voice sharp. "Do not test us, beast. Surrender the girl, and we will spare your life." The dragon's chest rumbled louder, his claws tearing into the ground. And Alara, her voice soft but clear, leaned close to him. "Don't let them take me. Dad," she whispered. "I don't want to be alone again." The moment broke something inside him. For centuries, he had fought for destruction, for hunger, for rage, but now for the first time he fought for love. He lowered his head, his golden eyes burning, and faced the fleets. His voice was not made of words but of fire. Still, every heart understood what he meant. If they touched her, the stars themselves would burn. The battle began in fire and thunder. Dozens of warships fired at once, beams of light tearing across the night. Explosions shook the ground. The ruins shattered further, but the dragon did not falter. He leapt into the sky, his wings crashing against the air, sending storms across the battlefield. Alara clung to him, her tiny body pressed against his scales, her eyes wide but unafraid, because she knew he would not let her go. The fleet surrounded him, their weapons raining down, but the dragons' fire tore through them like suns exploding. One ship after another fell in flames, their screams echoing across the stars. And yet, even in his fury, he shielded Alara with his wings. Every movement was not only attack but protection. The galaxy saw it clearly now. He was not a monster. He was a guardian. The allied fleets pressed harder, their commanders desperate. "Break him! Break the girl!" they shouted. But Alara stood, balancing on his massive shoulder, her voice rising above the chaos. "Stop fighting," she cried. "Please just stop," the soldiers faltered, their weapons pausing, their hearts shaken by the innocence of her voice. How could a child speak with such courage in the middle of a war? The dragon seized the moment. With a roar that split the stars, he unleashed a wall of fire so bright it blinded the fleets. Ships spun out of control, engines burning, weapons falling silent. The battlefield froze. No one dared fire again. No one dared move. Because in that silence, the truth was clear. The dragon had chosen, and no force in the galaxy could take her. At last, the commander of the fleet spoke again, his voice weaker now. "You cannot protect her forever, beast," he warned. "The galaxy will never stop hunting her." The dragon lowered his head, his golden eyes blazing, and Alara leaned forward, her small voice carrying across the silent battlefield. "You're wrong," she whispered, "because he's not just a beast, he's my Gad." The words carried like a knife through the stars. Every soldier, every commander, every survivor heard them, and for a moment, the galaxy itself seemed to bow in silence. The fleets began to retreat, their engines flickering, their voices hushed. They had come to break him, but instead, they had witnessed something far more terrifying. A monster with something to protect, a father willing to burn the stars for his child. As the last ship vanished into the distance, the dragon landed back on the ruined colony, his wings folded. Slowly, his chest heaving with the weight of battle. Alara pressed her forehead against his scales and whispered, "We did it." And though he did not speak, the rumble in his chest was enough. Yes, they had survived, but both of them knew this was not the end, it was only the beginning. A new beginning. The battlefield had grown quiet. The stars, once filled with fire and warships, now lay scattered with drifting wrecks, silent as graves. The galaxy had come to break the dragon, to steal the child, to end what they feared most. But instead, it had witnessed something no weapon could erase. The alien dragon had not bowed, and the small human girl had stood beside him, her voice carrying more weight than 1,000 armies. On the ruined colony, survivors emerged slowly, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had seen death, they had tasted despair. But now they saw something new. The dragon did not stand as their enemy. He stood as their shield. Alara walked ahead of him, her steps small but firm, and wherever she passed, the people lowered their heads in silence, not in fear of her, but in awe, because she was no longer just a child. She was the one who had spoken to the fire and made it listen. The galaxy's leaders gathered in secret chambers across the stars. Reports flashed before them. The fleets had failed. The girl lived. The dragon still burned. Voices cracked with anger and fear. "Do we keep fighting?" one demanded. "If we strike again, he will destroy us all," another whispered. "We cannot allow a monster to raise a child." A third snarled, "She will grow, she will learn, and together they will rule us all." But among the voices of rage, another truth began to rise. "What if she is not a curse?" a weary counselor said. "What if she is the answer?" Across colonies and empires, people spoke of what they had seen, the dragon protecting instead of killing, the girl calming him with nothing but her voice. For centuries, the galaxy had feared the alien dragon as death itself. Now, some dared to believe he could be something else. Not a weapon, not a destroyer, but a guardian. And at the center of it all was Alara, the child who whispered "Dad." Days passed, and the world began to heal. The survivors rebuilt small shelters among the ruins, and each night, the dragon curled his massive body around them like living walls. Children laughed again, their games echoing in the shadow of his wings. Fathers worked without fear. Mothers sang softly, and every time Alara walked among them, they felt safe. Her hand always touched his scales, reminding them he was not a nightmare, he was hers. But even peace carried weight. Alara often sat alone, staring at the stars, her voice quiet. "They'll come back, won't they?" she asked. "They'll never stop." The dragon lowered his head, his golden eyes soft, his chest rumbling, in a sound that was both sorrow and strength. Yes, they would return. The galaxy never forgave what it feared, but he would be ready, and this time, he would not fight alone. For in the weeks that followed, something unexpected began to happen. Messages came, not from enemies, but from strangers. A small alien world sent food and supplies. A forgotten colony sent engineers to rebuild. And whispered with their gifts came words. "We saw what she did," they said. "We believe." Hope spread like fire in dry grass, unstoppable once it began. The galaxy did not change overnight. There were still councils plotting, warlords sharpening their blades, fleets gathering in silence. But among the stars, a new story grew louder than the old. Not the tale of the monster who burned worlds, but the tale of the child who made the monster bow. And stories were harder to kill than ships. One evening, as the sun bled over the ruins, Alara climbed onto the dragon's back, her eyes glowing with determination. "I don't want to just hide," she said softly. "I want to show them I'm not afraid." The dragon lifted his wings slowly, his shadow stretching across the land. His chest rumbled, not in disagreement, but in acceptance. He knew the day would come when she would stand not only before him, but before the galaxy. And when that day came, the stars themselves would tremble. The survivors gathered below, watching as the dragon rose into the sky. His massive wings beat against the air, carrying Alara high above the broken world. She spread her arms, laughing as the wind rushed past. For the first time since war had taken her family, she felt free, and the galaxy watched in silence, its countless eyes fixed on the girl riding the beast once feared as death itself. From that day, the name Alara carried across the stars. Some called her the child of fire, others the daughter of the dragon. But to her, there was only one name that mattered. She was a daughter, and he was her dad. Together, they were not weakness, they were not curse, they were promise. A promise that even the darkest monsters could carry light. A promise that even the strongest fears could bend before love. And so the galaxy trembled once more, not from war, not from fire, but from hope. The alien dragon had been tamed not by weapons, not by armies, but by the soft voice of a small human girl. And in that whisper, the future of the stars had changed forever.